Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Bright Funders Talk at Temy. Temy is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. Each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to have an amazing guest joining us. That's Gavin Wheeldon, CEO at Purple. Hello, Gavin. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, and thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak with us. We know you're busy. For those people who don't know you or your company, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself and the company that you work at?
So I'm, as you've introduced, Gavin Wheeldon. I'm a techie geek. So I was once upon a time a programmer of sorts. That's what I studied as well. But full-on geek as a kid, and still am largely now. The company that I run now, I've built and exited a company prior to this, which was AI before they called it AI, so it was machine learning, and that was all to do with language models or translation and language models. Purple, we basically get people online in the real world, and that's not through broadband and equipment. It's attached to that. We run the guest Wi-Fi in about 80,000 locations, everything from a small venue like a McDonald's to entire cities and everything in between, stadiums, and we've got over 100 airports and cruises and everything you can imagine where the public might go. And more recently, we do stuff in the sort of multi-dwelling units as well. So built to rent, student accommodation, care homes, where we're creating effectively like mini bubble networks inside of those venues so that people can have all the personal devices on a private bubble of a network. So that's what we do. We have about 500 million users of our Wi-Fi around the world. Highly likely you will have used it at some point somewhere. Might not necessarily known it was us, but yeah, that's what we do.
And what attracted you to this particular field? Was it something that you've always been interested in terms of like Wi-Fi and connectivity?
No, not in the slightest, actually. The reason I was attracted to it, because I absolutely hate those bloody captive portals. And I'm sure anybody listening will know what I mean. There's that moment of dread when you click the open network and it's like, is it going to pop up and are they going to want my inside leg measurement? Or is it going to say I've already got an account, but I can't remember the username and password? And it was that hate of those bloody things that drove me to try and fix it. And unfortunately, they have been a necessity, but we've worked for over a decade to just make them easier. So, we were the first company in the world to do social login on a Wi-Fi network. Why nobody had done it, I have no idea. You could log into websites, but you couldn't on a mobile, on a Wi-Fi network. And we brought just simple things like mobile first design, responsive design, getting the viewports right so it doesn't, expand the box out of your visual range, just basic good manners, really. And then more recently, we now do secure public Wi-Fi. So we've got an app, Purple Connects. And if you've got that and one of our customers has got the secure bit of it enabled, you will just connect and it will be 100% secure. So no risk of man-in-the-middle attacks or, any other issues. And if anybody, you get a chance to go around Newcastle, we've done a deal with Newcastle City Council. So all of the public areas across Newcastle are enabled with this secure Wi-Fi. The libraries, the gyms, so it's the outdoor and indoor areas. And the beauty there as well is private businesses are also putting the same network. So you seamlessly roam from the council networks to the local bar. And there's many other venues that are joining. So Newcastle is becoming more and more secure, single, unified network. And that's what we plan to do everywhere in the world. So one day I can finally say goodbye to those bloody horrible captive portals.
Sounds like you were doing amazing work. Being a CEO, that's not for the faint of heart. What attracted you to being a CEO, or was it something that you just happened to end up being?
Yeah, I didn't even know what a CEO was. I started my first business at 19 and I had no idea what I was doing. And actually that business failed. So I ended up with about 30 staff, 3 years, it grew well, but I didn't understand the difference between simplified version of profit that I had in my head and how that translates to cash flow and reality. So it was some pretty harsh lessons at a young age, and that didn't work out. I went away, dusted myself off, worked in London for a couple of years and earned a bit of money, learned a few more bits there, and then said, actually, I want to do this again. So I went off and set up my last business, which did fortunately turn out as a success. And I sold that to Capita over a decade ago before starting this one.
Amazing. So you've been on quite a journey. If you look back at your past experiences as an entrepreneur, what do you think has shaped you the best to help lead like a technology-driven company like Purple?
I think, well, firstly, being genuinely interested in it. In tech, this is obviously running a business is different, but tech, I genuinely love it. I'll be up until 2 a.m, building stuff with AI, and I haven't realised what time it is. And I listen to podcasts and ebooks and everything about tech. So I love the stuff. In terms of running a business, I think the failure the first time really helped shape me, because that is, to tell people that they're losing their jobs, and it's, quite frankly, because of your mistakes, is scarring that lives with you for a very long time and shapes some of the decisions you make. And I actually went on, a bit of advice I'd give anybody in the UK at least. I went on and did a diploma in company direction with the Institute of Directors after that, because I was determined to know every single bit about running a company and how it should be done properly. I then went on to become a chartered director, which was, years of portfolio building and what have you. And that was really valuable. And as our COO here once said, I know 80% of every single person's job, because I want to know that, legally we're completely sound. I know my way in and out of the numbers as good as, most finance people. And the same with marketing. And, I think having that understanding of everything, you're not as good as the people you hire, because otherwise that would be a bad use of time. But you need to have enough knowledge to challenge and think about, is that the right thing?
What would you say the biggest misconceptions are about businesses that have to manage like customer data and digital engagement?
I think there's a balance. There's, in some ways, an unreasoned fear of it, of what might happen. If you are sensible and do the right things, then you will generally be okay. And I would say as well, things like GDPR, and you've got CCPA and all the other sort of New York Shield and Poppy and blah, blah, blah. They're all very, very similar. And if you treat customer data with respect and think about, would I want my data to be handled in that way, or to do with it what you may be thinking of doing? If you do the right things, generally you're going to be okay, because it's about the fundamentals are doing the right things. And if you can show that you are doing the right things, generally you're going to be okay.
So when a new client approaches you or adopts Purple, like what is like the first step in integrating your solution like into their strategy?
The first part is we want to get people online, and we want to do it in a seamless way so that's a pleasure for the customer. And that's really easy. We can get them up and running. We put 500 Walmart stores in Canada live in hours, and we've done it with thousands of other venues at a time. So that bit technically is very straightforward. We're heavily integrated with all the major manufacturers' Wi-Fi equipment. Some of them, it is literally one-click provisioning. You choose Purple, enable, off you go. Where the interesting parts and the magic happens is we actually then have analytics exactly the same as Google Analytics for a website. So in physical venues, we can tell you who's coming, how often, how long they stay, bounce rates, conversions, recency, frequency. So all of the things that you pour over on a digital site, we recreate in a physical one. So that's when we're working more with the business teams. So that's your customer experience and your marketing and your analytics and others that have a different view. We integrate with loyalty platforms. So with MyMacca, which is the McDonald's loyalty platform, we showed hundreds of % growth in signups, because as part of the journey, Wi-Fi journey, we can say, is Barry already a member? He is, brilliant, thumbs up Barry, off you go. If he's not, would you like to join? And rather than you having to fill in yet another form, you've already given us data, so we can just get whatever's needed, and instant you're a member. So there's things like that. If you go, right, well, I just want to get people online. I want it to be, legally compliant. I want it to be really smooth. And I don't want, McDonald's in Belgium, we showed a 90% reduction in tickets because people just get on really easily. If you want that, right, we've done that, brilliant. I can move on and I can sleep at night. But there's a ton of other really, really clever stuff we can do. And that could take weeks, months, years, because you work through different things as you go and say, right, Avanti trains, surveying, if you travel on the train, or you did at one point, they wanted to know, was it too hot, too cold, or just right? The Goldilocks question. Most people said it was too cold. So they were able to change the air conditioning and they saved $250,000 a year. And what would have taken months of trying to get people on trains with clipboards was done in hours and days. So there's so much you can do with the platform that it is an ongoing sort of relationship.
So you mentioned just at the start of this interview about AI or language learning. Like, how do you see AI and like machine learning transforming the way that businesses such as yourself understand and interact with their customers?
It can be used in so many different ways. There's the two ways we look at it is internal and product or external. So from an internal perspective, a very simple example is if I'm meeting a customer, or I'm a salesperson meeting a potential customer, typically we'd be saying to them, you need to look at the annual accounts, you need to look at any blogs they've done, figure out what's important to them, what events have they spoken at. So there's a whole host of research to say, well, who are they? What's important? Have they got a loyalty platform? Are they growing? Are they investing in technology? Do they, all of these things that would have taken a lot of work for a salesperson to do. Well, we're a Google shop. So now we just say, Gemini, deep research, go in and tell me all of these things. So they run that 3 or 4 minutes. They've got everything because it's a prompt that tells it to look just for the things we want. So that's the way we did do it. So that's nice and easy. But then we built that into HubSpot. So the salesperson doesn't even have to do that anymore. There's a workflow in the background that the minute a lead gets added, it does exactly that thing and it populates HubSpot. So the minute the salesperson opens that lead, they've got everything they need. They can see, all of those things. Is it ICP, ideal customer profile? What are the key hooks and how does our solution fit to their plans as a business? That's one simple example. I've got tons and tons of them. If you want to fill the podcast with them, I could do that. But
that would be very interesting, Gavin, but just for time, if you wouldn't mind. I have lots of other questions to ask you. Now, one in particular that may be quite interesting to you is like, how do you see the future emerging? Like, some people are very positive about AI and some people are quite negative. I imagine you're probably positive, but where do you sit?
I am very positive, and as with everything, I think, I use the example, a knife can be used to create a beautiful meal or kill somebody. And I think any tool has that dual approach, and you would hope that the balance of humanity is good and they're going to use that knife to cook a really nice meal. And I think AI, if you're talking about the sort of, you've got the sort of end of the world clan versus the, Wally sort of, we're all going to be sat back and doing what we want. I think the balance of humanity, I would hope, will keep things in check and moving in the right direction. The possibilities are wondrous and there is risk with it. I think, from a workplace point of view, I think the possibilities are incredible. I think for those that want it, I talk about super producers, it gives them the ability to be 10, 15 people in one role by creating agents and workflows and everything to absolutely ace what you do. And there's a saying, that I can't remember who said it, but AI will not take your job. The person using AI will. So if you embrace it and you do all of those things, you will grow with it and you will, the opportunity is incredible for you as an individual. If you sit with your head in the sand and don't embrace it, then absolutely you're going to be at risk.
Gavin, are you quite idealistic, like head in the cloud, like super ambitious in terms of AI? Do you need to be regrounded, or are you automatically like very pragmatic about how you approach AI?
I think I'm pretty pragmatic. I know the limitations. I know it can be absolutely stupid, at times, and it can be infuriating. And I think, the hype cycle, everybody expects incredibly big things on day one, so we overestimate what it can do in the short term and we underestimate what it will do in the long term. So I'm under no illusions about its capabilities now, and they are limited. And it's like, code, it can be infuriating where it gets really simple things wrong, but can do incredible things in 30 seconds that might have taken days to program. So it's about understanding for me. The more you use it, the more you understand its limitations, and you're either able to work around it from a prompting or a workflow basis, like supplementing. I'll often go, use Gemini Deep Research, pull that out, and then give it to GPT and say, have a look at this. Why is it wrong? And then, so get them to sort of like play off against each other. But the more you use it, the more you understand the limitations and how to augment those.
So it sounds like you're very pragmatic about AI. When you talk with stakeholders, clients, are they as pragmatic? Are they quite naive or unrealistic when it comes to the expectations of language learning models and AI?
I think there's probably, because people aren't really using it, if you actually, push and challenge, most people are still just using the chat, and don't even realize things like deep research are there, and they're just a click, in a tool. And when you show them how to use deep research, it's like you've invented fire. It's like, well, it was there all along, but understanding how to do it. So I think, and therefore, I guess you've got this sort of what is it? It's a dissonance of people think it can do absolute magic and it's going to take over the world and it's going to replace my job next week, but they've never actually really used it to realize that that's not going to happen anytime soon. But it is incredible in what it can do today. So I think there's this sort of like complete imbalance of what people think it can do versus the reality, and the fact that people aren't really using it beyond a bit of chat interaction to balance that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is there a challenge out there that's the next big challenge that you want to solve? Like, is there one major challenge that you think, oh, this is the one that needs to be tackled next, even if it's not from your company specifically, but generally in the sector?
So I'm still on that journey that I hate public Wi-Fi, and what I want to see is a single secure Wi-Fi network across the world where I just roam like I would do on cellular in and out of venues. And we have it, the venue can still ask if you want to share the data, but they're not trying to crowbar it out of your hands. So it's more intent. And so I'm still on that, and not just, from a personal perspective, I want that because I hate it, still hate it. I hate it because the kids mither me everywhere we go. The minute we sit down for a meal, it's, well, what's the Wi-Fi? It's like, oh, can I at least order a beer before we do that dance? So if I can get rid of that, but also from a digital inclusion perspective. And if you actually look at stats around even the UK, there are 2.1 million houses without any connectivity and a load more with very limited. There's 40 million in the US. You go outside of, developed nations, it's ridiculously high. So being able to get that, and there are tons of stats around, a person will pay £500 more for goods and services if they aren't very well connected than those that are, just because they're not doing comparison sites, they're not getting the same sorts of deals. And that sort of injustice, imbalance, if I think can be solved with Wi-Fi, with better access to Wi-Fi. And that's a mission. We're a B Corp, if you know what a B Corp is. It's basically means we're incorporated not just to return money to shareholders, but to do social good.
Okay.
So our our articles state we that's what we're here for. Yes, we need to deliver back money to shareholders, but we want to do social good in the world. And one of the things that we want to drive is digital inclusion. So that is still a big mission for me.
Perfect. Sounds really amazing that you're going out there and making good and also generating that return for shareholders, which are equally important. If you look at your company, let's say the next decade, where do you see Purple going? What are the challenges and promising things that lay ahead?
Scaling is always the challenge, and one of the challenges we have, it's go to market, it's getting people, the deals in the top of the funnel. And one of the things we're very successful in the enterprise, so your McDonald's and Walmarts and SoFi Stadium, the Miami Heats, trains and planes and all of these things. But 99% of the venues in the world are actually SMBs. And so if we truly want to get this blanket network across the world, then we need to get into the SMBs. And that is really challenging to cut through when somebody's, busy washing the dishes and then running to take an order for the next meal to go, whoa, stop a minute, let me talk to you about secure public Wi-Fi. And so that for us is the biggest challenge, I think, is how do we really scale across all these different venue types. We're already in 90 countries, but there's, that leaves another 160 to go at. So it's really about scalability. How do we scale across the world?
And anything that's exciting you, what's the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to over the next decade with your company?
It's tech, it's AI. I think, as I said, the sort of like, over expecting the short term and not in the long term. So I'm really excited to see, a year, 2, 3 time, what does it look like from a tech perspective with AI? And so I'm excited about that.
So we are coming towards the end of the session, unfortunately, Gavin, but just one more question, if I might. You gave some advice early in the podcast to people. What further advice would you give to anyone who might want to be an entrepreneur or a CEO? What is the most important thing that they can do from the outset?
I think the first thing is just do it. How many people sit in a pub going, here's a brilliant idea, and ideas, that they're great, but it's the person who actually goes out and does it that makes a difference. Somebody once said, I got into running, and somebody once said, the hardest part is putting your trainers on. Actually, when you get out there, it's fine. And I think that's the same in business. Just, it's getting on and doing it. The second bit, I would say, it's lonely at the top. And one of the things that I got once got asked, have you had a mentor? And I said, well, not exactly, but I have read every single book ever written by any CEO of any note. And I once said to somebody, if Jack Welch, who runs GE, who's one of my sort of heroes, or let's take Richard Branson, I've read all of his as well. If you were offered a full day with that person, would you take it to listen to their advice? And I think most people would say, I'd snap your hands off, it'd be worth tens of thousands. Well, these people have been very kind enough to put all of their advice, not all of it, but lots of advice in these books, to read everything you can get your hand on. Listen to podcasts like this. When I'm driving, I don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts non-stop or audiobooks. There is a wealth of information out there. Suck it up, be curious, and that will help immensely with the success.
Yeah, the learning process never ends, does it, Gavin?
Absolutely not. Until you die.
And on that happy note, I'd like to thank you so much again, Gavin, for taking the time to speak with us today. It's been really appreciative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Gavin Wheeldon, CEO at Purple.